Now you're on Periscope.
Not Periscope.
It's live video streaming. Basically, yeah, it's great fun.
Which goes where?
Onto the it's just like a kind of social media app, really. So it streams it onto. I don't know which. Just onto the Periscope app, really.
Better do some mic checks then.
Well, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, David or Freddie first. I think if you take Freddie first, and if you'd like to put your headphones on and pull the microphone towards you. I've got 40 seconds to do this. So. Can you say a few words, Freddie?
Yes. Good morning, David.
Yeah.
Very nice to be here.
Nice to meet you too.
Yes, thank you very much.
The levels sound great. So, 30 seconds on this one. And we'll go.
I'll do this one.
Straight into it. I'll have to do yours after the next song.
You've still got 25 seconds.
16 seconds. 12 seconds.
I'll just talk up if I have to, mate. It's not a problem.
Hello, Periscopers.
Hey, you've got two people looking, and a love heart. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, that's Take On Me by Aha, and you're listening to MK Business Brunch on Step Close Sounds. We are community radio from Milton Keynes. As I said before, the music rudely interrupted me. We've got some great guests on today. We've talked to Dave Stimson, who's a fellow presenter on the show, later on. But first, I'd like to introduce you to Freddie Gilmard, and I've got his pronunciation wrong, I know that. So Freddie, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, good morning, David, and thank you for having me on the show.
Pleasure.
So I think you did very well with my name. So it's Gilmard. So silence D.
Gilmard.
Gilmard. Yes, I'm the managing director of a company called the Red Thread Partnership, and we've been in business for about 4 years. We're based out of Olney, so around the area. And really, our business is all around leadership and organizational development. And we focus really in 3 core areas. We help to develop people, and we help to grow great teams, and ultimately we also help to create and excite organization through their culture.
And how did you get into that line of business? Red Thread Partnership?
Well, it's a very good question. I've always had a passion for people, to be fair, and my career has taken me through many different arenas. In particular, I spent quite a bit of time in communications and in marketing, and then I moved into the world of what we called performance improvement, which is all around helping really sales teams and teams perform more effectively. And about 15 years ago, I came across. I was involved in a large-scale change program for Barclays, which was a real eye-opener because we did a lot of what I call transactional change rather than transformational change at the time. And I got fascinated about how do we really help shift behavior? How do we really engage people in organizations and get the best out of them? And as a result of the program, I left the communication industry and went to be trained in organizational psychology and change, to what I call the dark side, really, to try and understand how do we help to shift behavior when people really sometimes don't want to change and are scared of change. So I spent a bit of time doing that at a small practice in Cranfield, and then decided that actually it was something I was absolutely passionate about, and set about really helping organisation with transformation and leaders, really, because leaders are key.
So you weren't always doing that? You weren't always doing
No.
But was there a moment, you just spoke about the moment of being engaged, but can you remember back to that 15, 16 years ago when you maybe thought, wow, and somebody and the light bulb went on?
Did the light bulb went on? I think it's key to understand that change has always been part of my life. When I was 10 years old, I was living an idyllic lifestyle in Madagascar, and then overnight our life changed. Through the revolution, suddenly we ended up with no homes, no jobs, nothing, and we ended up, for me, in a foreign country, which ended up being France. So change, then coming into the UK, not being able to speak English at the age of 18, having to rebuild my life again, was a big part of change. So change has always been part of something, and I guess the combination of understanding marketing, understanding communication, being passionate about people, going through change, suddenly, when I looked at the Barclays program and I was looking at transactional change and not truly deep transformational change, there was the moment of saying, they're spending all this money, but actually, is it making any difference? It was a so what moment. So I guess there must have been a moment where I kind of stood up and said, you're wasting your money because you're not actually fundamentally shifting the behaviour of your leaders. It has to be
something. A fundamental look at what organisations can do to improve.
Yeah, and I think really, there are many companies who talk the talk, and there are very few who actually, follow through on what they say, and that's the key difference. And a lot of that is through leadership. The integrity of leadership behind the intent. So, if there is a gap between what you say you do and what you actually do, people are not going to believe you. There's not going to be much trust. And if there isn't trust, the moment there is a lack of trust, the speed of an organisation slows right down. If you have high trust, the speed of the organisation increases massively.
So we touched on leadership, and what is leadership many times on the programme. What would you say leadership is?
Well, that's a big question, isn't it? What's leadership? Anybody can be a leader. Yes, thank you. What's leadership? Leadership is many things. Leadership is many things. The reason I say that is because I've been lucky to be involved with many organisations and teams where they really wanted to become leaders. For me, the first thing about leadership is about an ability to look at yourself and say, do you know what? There are many things that I can probably do quite well, but there are also many things I need to learn to do differently. And it's having a humility to be able to take feedback, and sometimes request feedback, take it, learn to do something with it. Because leadership for me is about key moments. So when you run an organisation, it's about your ability to really understand a situation and act accordingly.
Right. Most of the time, it's kind of things come along nicely, don't they? But then something happens.
Yes.
And you say leadership is defined, or your leadership ability is defined by the way that you react to the situation.
Yes, it's about your ability to go into your toolkit and then react appropriately depending on the situation you're facing. I mean, and the other thing I'd say about leadership is a job, but many people don't treat it as a job. So they get the promotion, they get the car, and they go, "Well, hey, I'm in charge."
Yes, I've got the money now, and here we go.
And everything starts to go wrong. Whereas actually, you would never imagine a high-performing athlete, going to compete at the Olympics or at a national level without practicing. So why should a manager, a leader, expect to be a great leader or expect to be doing things right if they don't learn their craft, if they don't learn to be better leaders?
Yes. How can you learn?
We don't train our managers.
Oh, you can absolutely learn to be a better leader. There are absolutely many ways. So you read, you inform yourself. There are so much material around that's available. There's great things like TED Talks. You inform yourself. You go on courses. You talk to your colleagues about what they see you do well, and also what they see you do not so well. Then you have got to create the space to allow yourself to understand how you can lead differently and how you can be different. I guess the greater challenge in businesses today is that everybody says they have no more time, and in the famous word of Star Trek, time is the final frontier. There is just no more time. So one of the things we do with organisation is help leaders to make the choice of time. And that is, if you're going to want to develop yourself, when are you going to make the time to do it?
So you make the time.
You have to make the time. You have to make the time. Because there is just no more time. So everything, all the choices that you have as leaders in front of you are all about choices.
So choosing to be a better leader would you say, is the most important decision a leader could make?
Choosing to be a better leader. Yes, I think there's probably a moment to say, I think I'm okay, and I think I do quite well in most managers, most leaders will be, good at the what. I call it the what. It becomes more difficult to deal with the how, because a lot of leaders, find the how a little bit fluffy. So it's about making a conscious decision that as an individual, as a leader in an organisation, I want to improve what I do, I want to become better. So yes, as a result of that, what I do find is that the difference between those leaders who go on to become great leaders and those who stagnate really are the ones who make a conscious decision to treat leadership as a job and therefore start to tackle some of the weaker areas that they have.
Recognising your own weaknesses is quite a skill in itself, isn't it?
Yes, I think so. Do you know, I remember a particular moment. I was invited to go to this multinational, very large organisation, and this gentleman invited me to come and talk to him about some change he needed to make. And through some conversation, it became very evident that what had happened with this individual, he hadn't quite stepped up into the role of managing director. So it was our second meeting, and this guy was a very tall, very broad Scottish lad, and he was pacing his office, and he said to me, "So, Freddie, what have you found?" And I said, "Can I be as open as I need to be?" He says, "Be as open as you need to be." So I said, "Well, I'll be honest with you. I've heard lots of good things and some things which are troubling me a little bit. And one of the things that's troubling me is that it would appear that you're behaving as a sales director and not a managing director, because you're paying attention in meetings to the numbers, and the only thing you talk about is in the numbers, but you never talk about some of the softer skills and some softer areas around culture, around how people are feeling, whether they feel that they can contribute, etc., etc." And I always remember him looking at me going, "This could be a long conversation. I better make you a cup of coffee." I knew, David, from that point, he was being serious. He was being serious about receiving the feedback. Because I tell you, sometimes it's not pleasant receiving feedback.
No, absolutely. Does that mark out the difference between a good leader and somebody that's not quite cut out for leadership, that they can't accept?
I think it's a start. And I can pinpoint lots and lots of occasions where people have got... I mean, we've just finished running a senior leadership program for a major company in Northampton. And what was interesting, actually, on the graduation day, a lot of the people who've been on the senior leadership program said to us that one of the biggest learning for them was the ability to look at themselves and say, "Do you know what? There's a different way of leading. There's a different way of engaging with people and working with our teams. And you know what you know. You don't know what you don't know." So that's why leadership has to be a job, because you've got to learn about the different ways and the different options that are available to you. You have to be able to put different techniques in your toolbox. So when the situation arises, when you're moving into a bigger job, when you're running larger team, when you're moving into a different culture, as leaders, you're able to go into that toolkit and say, do you know what, this would be really, really helpful right now.
This is one now. This is important. So does leadership